And so while your idea may be great, it may not be big enough. So how do you think big? Here's the challenge that I have to everybody I talk to at this point. My challenge is think about your idea and think about whether or not it's disruptive. And that's like the buzzword. Is it disruptive? Does it completely turn an industry upside down? Does it completely change the way people do stuff? Whether it be the way they talk, communicate, interact, whatever. How significant is the problem you're trying to solve? And does your solution completely change the game? When you do stuff like that, those are the game changers. Those are the things that get all of the publicity. Those are the things that get all of the VCs running around and trying to figure out, how do I get a meeting with this guy? That's what grabs everyone's attention. It's okay if what you're working on is not that, but make sure we have the right expectations for what we're working on. If you're working on something that is not going to just completely take off like crazy if everything goes right, then understand that maybe VC is not where you want to go today. You may get there later on, but immediately that may not be the right route for funding. So don't go down that path of calling a bunch of VCs and then calling them back and wondering, why haven't they called me back? I'm going to try them again. And I'm going to email them and I'm going to send a whole bunch of stuff, because all you're doing is wasting your time. And you need your time to focus your efforts on what's going to be the most beneficial for what you're working on. So always keep in mind, like, how major is what I'm working on? What does it mean? And what does it mean? And for whom will we be targeting? Will we be impacting? And if that number's big, you're going to get a lot of attention from investors and a lot of attention from talent. And those things are very important. The last thing I have on here is kind of related to that, which is unilinguals. Basically, we typically speak one language and not enough of them. And you have to understand the language of investing, like even at a cursory level, just so you kind of know when you're in a room and people are tossing around a bunch of terms that you're not thinking, I got to go run back out and try to figure out what that meant. You have to kind of know, what is it that I'm dealing with, so I know how to approach them. You have to know how to approach people like me that work with accelerators. You got to know how to approach people that are potentially your customer. You got to know their business. Like, you got to learn some other languages. You got to learn the technology, learn tech speak to figure out what's the right platform for what I'm working on, so I know who to recruit to work on what I'm trying to accomplish. So the last thing is, on the other side, external factors. By and large, in my opinion, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. It would be frustrating, but what are you going to do? I mean, you can't make anybody give you money unless you rob them. That's not really the right way to go either. It's not going to last long. But there are some things that happen. So the funding climate, it changes. I mean, there's mixed reports now about how much money is available, and there's plenty of people who can tell you that there's no money available, and there's other people that think that it's completely free-flowing. Investor pattern matching. That's what they do. People invest in things that they're familiar with. And until there's a change in that pattern, not a change in the way they do stuff. This is the way they've been doing stuff for a long time. And this is not the first industry where pattern matching has been applied. We've all been involved with pattern matching in all walks of life. So until we see some differences in terms of the types of companies that are being funded and being successful, then the patterns don't change. Once that starts to happen, the patterns change. You have a question?
Assuming you have addressed all the self-inflicted wounds that you're not slashing yourself with razor blades, like that, do you feel that an accelerator is absolutely essential for a minority entrepreneur, and how much do you feel that that will increase their chance of success? Because, just to give you a little backdrop, I think that we've handled that. We have an all-black faculty team. We have team members that are not black. We've been funded, but but not by a lot of money, $20,000. And
you said 120?
It's 120.
Okay.
Over about a period of 6 months. And I feel that I've seen in this thing, it's very frustrating that, you look at what the professional scene, that the amount of dollars flowing into our community is just a lot less. You have to cross your T's and dot your I's that much better to see that money to convince them. And I think that challenges the external one that you mentioned, pattern matching. And so I'm just wondering your perspective on getting to a position of success. You have a serious idea and a team that complements complements each other, whether they're, whether they're not all black or not.
Yep.
How important do you feel like, a DreamIt or a Y Combinator or Techstars or even something that's not as high caliber is to success of a minority, and how seriously should we take that?
All right, great questions. So as I said at the very beginning, I'm gonna break a bunch of rules. I'm gonna say some stuff I probably shouldn't say. So my partners would say an accelerator is absolutely the right way to go, and that's the best thing possibly for you, etc. The truth of the matter is this: Y Combinator, Techstars, DreamIt, etc. We're all trying to figure it out too. We think we have the answer. It's going to take a few years to figure out if this really is the right way to do it. That being said, if you add up all of the big name ones that exist, there's not a whole lot of spots. The acceptance rate right now at accelerators is 1.5%, and it's getting lower. And it's getting lower because the number of applications is going through the roof. The number of seats don't change. There's only a certain number of cycles we can do. There's only a certain number of companies we can work with. So what do you do? So I'm going to answer your question, but I just want to say this real quick. So all those things I just mentioned, all different ways that you end up, lots of reasons why people end up failing with their ventures. Let's say, like you said, let's say we've done all of that. You've done the self and your team audit. You've kind of verified that you have what you think you need to have. This is a question I always ask. Does your team, based on what you have put together, does it have the +1 effect? So I got two people, put them together, and do they become bigger by working together? So that's the big question. All right. So to answer your question more specifically, I think that if you are a startup and you have things are set up the way you think you have your team, you think you have your stuff together, then apply to the accelerators as one option. Be prepared for whatever that process is going to look like. But then also while doing that, look at all the other alternative avenues for funding your startup. And I say alternative from this standpoint. So if you feel like this pattern matching is going on, and of course there always is pattern matching going on, then are you also changing the game by looking at other people that fund startups or that could potentially be investors that maybe are not a part of the normal ecosystem? And so there's the Minority Angel Investor Network, a group of folks that are based in Philadelphia. Most people don't know of them, but they're angels. Can you find more people like that? Can you navigate the world of high net worth individuals to get a chance to kind of show them what you're all about and what you're working on? And so what we have to do is we have to really get very creative about how we get in front of people and how we get more and more people familiar with what we're working on. And quite honestly, like I said before, without short of robbing somebody, there's not a way to force anyone to give you money, which means that we have to just kind of, like I said, we have to go after all the different avenues that are available and just start and just stay on it. Just keep working on it. I know it's a tough thing to be able to say when the money is dwindling, but it's really the only choice you have if you want to go forward. All right, so I've been told I have like no time, right? So, like I said before, it's something I really love to do. So, how much time do I have, Christine?
5 minutes.
I have 5 minutes. All right, I'm gonna cover DreamIt in 5 minutes, which is like impossible. All right, so DreamIt.